The spectacular gains made by the far right dominated the headlines after last Sunday's European Parliament elections. But there are other, equally important conclusions to be drawn, like the collapse of the Greens and the triumph of the European People's Party. Will these results really shake up the balance of power in Brussels? And who will be the key power brokers in the next term? Good evening. My name is Mateusz Mazzini, and this is Wider View. The dust has settled, and we now know the makeup of the next European Parliament. Ursula von der Leyen and her European People's Party emerged victorious again, but the path leading to another term for her at the helm of the European Commission remains very narrow. The vote brought about also a political earthquake in France, showed voters' dissatisfaction with the ruling coalition in Germany, and strengthened the incumbents in both Poland and Italy. But while the advancements of the far right are evident, it is not yet certain they will translate into a tangible political success. The complete structure of the parliamentary factions is not yet decided, and the end of the voting only highlights the beginning of backstage negotiations. So who are the real winners and losers of this year's European elections? We will put that question to our guests in just a minute. But first, let's take a look at the recap of last week's events in European politics.
The far right was unanimously crowned the winner of Sunday's vote. In France, the National Rally, led by the 28-year-old Jordan Bardella, won 30 out of the country's 81 seats. To everyone, I would like to say that our ambitions, together with the far-right leader Marine Le Pen, go beyond those of mere political party. Our desire is to unite all French people who desire to put back the nation on its feet and to allow France to get back hope. Germany saw the AfD coming second at gaining 6 seats, while Brothers of Italy increased their representation by 14 members. Overall, the parties representing identity and democracy and the Conservatives and Reformists won 13 additional posts in Brussels. But that's not the end of the far-right's gains. Many parties from the extreme end of European politics, including the AfD and Poland's Konfederacja, are not yet affiliated with any major group. If they decide to join forces with larger players, the position of Eurosceptics could be even stronger. On the opposite end of the political spectrum, Sunday's vote delivered defeat and disappointment. The Greens fell victim to EU's climate policies, which are immensely unpopular with the electorate, and some left-leaning parties found themselves swept out of the European Parliament Monday morning. Liberals also suffered a significant loss, ending up with 23 fewer seats than in their previous term. But while the elections reshuffled parts of the hierarchies in Brussels, its top remains immune to changes. The centre-right European People's Party gained 10 seats, reaffirming its position as the dominant force in Europe. Together with Socialists and Democrats and the Liberal Renew faction, the EPP meets the target of 361 votes to win the next term.
Thank you.
But both potential coalition partners will have demands, and until those are met, Europe will have to hold its breath.
We won the European elections, my friends.
We know everything there is to know based on sheer numbers alone. But is there a deeper political truth behind this result? Joining us tonight are 3 esteemed experts who will try together to predict the future of Europe. Ivan Vejvoda, Permanent Fellow at the Institute of Human Sciences in Vienna. Dr. Michał Matlak, Policy Advisor at the European Parliament. And Susi Denisson, Senior Policy Fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations. I want to begin this discussion with you, Susi, and pose you the question about this great European irony, or even maybe a great European contradiction. On the one hand, we do have unquestionable advances of the far right pretty much everywhere on the continent, from Portugal to Poland, with obvious triumphs in Germany and France. But on the other hand, it seems to be the case that these advances will have no impact whatsoever on the appointment on top jobs in Brussels. Is this a correct reading, you think?
Well, thank you very much for having me this evening. I think I would agree that the results of these European Parliament elections mean that we're going to see the most straightforward outcome in terms of the appointment process. I think that we will see Ursula von der Leyen confirmed as Commission President, and the expected candidates for the Commission, for the Council Presidency and European Parliament Presidency, with no kind of big surprises at the end of the Council at the end of this month. But I think that these results have impacted that picture because the reason that there is likely to be no surprises is because there are a number of national leaders of member states of the EU, the largest ones, who feel particularly enfeebled by these results. Emmanuel Macron, who you had in your report, has lost dramatically to the Rassemblement National. Olaf Scholz in Germany, his party came in third place. His coalition has done very poorly compared to the CDU-CSU coalition. We've also seen Tusk in Poland gain only a very marginal victory in Poland. So I don't see any of these leaders coming to the European Council with a particular dramatic new proposal at the end of this month, which is why we will get the much more predictable outcome of Ursula von der Leyen.
Even let's bring you into this discussion now, because speaking about the far right, to an extent, I think their advancements and significant gains were to be predicted. But in some parts on the continent, I think they surprised even the most attentive analysts. Were they a surprise to you? And second part of that question, do you think that these successes will be able to translate into a significant political power in Brussels, maybe in form of a new political faction or a stable alliance?
Well, indeed, I think these elections were predictable, and the results of the far right as well. I think that those who followed knew what would happen, especially in the bigger countries that you mentioned, France, Germany, and others. In Austria, where I am, the far right somewhat underperformed. It came in at 27%. But more importantly, as to the effects of the greater presence of the far right in the European Parliament, I think we won't see major disruptions, as Susi mentioned, in the creation of the top leadership in Brussels. The sort of influence of the far right already happened because we saw a swing in the policies of the mainstream parties, center-right, center-left, where they acknowledged that there was a dissatisfaction with certain green policies on migration issues. So, to put it briefly, mainstream parties absorbed some of the ideas that were coming from the far right already.
Michał, as an insider, tell us what is the mood in Brussels right now? Because on the election night, Ursula von der Leyen, and I quote, said, "We, the European People's Party, are the anchor of stability in European politics." Do you think, in line with what we've discussed already, she actually remains a front-runner to be the next European Commission president? And if that is the case, will she actually make any sacrifices in political negotiations to remain at the helm of the Commission?
So the mood, I'd say, is kind of rather calm. I don't see any signs of panic.
That's a good piece of information.
Because we expected these results. They were not that so surprising as well. Plus, maybe we can talk about it a bit later. There are also some positive signs, especially, I'd say, from Poland, from Hungary, but also in other countries, including France. I know that it's the result of President Macron's party is very bad, but we shouldn't forget that, for example, the Socialist Party result was not that bad, and it seems that they will be an important player on the kind of in the centrist camp or center left camp. As for Madame von der Leyen, yes, it seems that she will be the candidate for for next term. She came today to the parliament and met with the EPP group members. It seems that her position is rather secure. It's true that this is kind of a bit paradoxical that we see the rise of the far right or hard right, and it would be difficult to translate this result to the in terms of kind of the personalities, because it's unlikely that someone from the hard right will get one of the most important positions. What we are observing is the inclusion of the hard right topics and hard right ideas, let's say, in the work of the Commission. We can see that the Green Deal is being modified. We can see that there is a growing consensus around the migration issues, so that migration should be controlled as much as possible. We can see that, and I think that we will see the continuation of that. So to answer the fears that provoke people to vote for the far right, I think that especially von der Leyen will try to work hard on it. As for possible deals with the far right parties, it's difficult, because obviously she will have to focus on her coalition, which will most likely be which will consist of the EPP, obviously, the Socialists and the Renew group. So I don't expect any major kind of deals with the far right. I can imagine this kind of deals like she did the last time with the Polish delegation of the ECR, for example, kind of a smaller kind of deals, but not major concessions.
So we spoke excessively about the winners. Let's talk at least a little bit about the losers. And I want to circle back to you, Susi, and ask about two particular factions. On the one hand, we have the Liberals that lost over 20 seats compared to the last term in Brussels, and the Greens, who faced a near total extinction event, to use this very environmental language. Frankly, what went wrong for these two groups?
Well, I see these two groups slightly differently. It is interesting that these two were the success stories of the 2019 elections and effectively became the kind of the kingmakers after the 2019 elections, and are being identified as the groups that have gone down the most this time around. I would say that when it comes to the Liberals, this story is very much about the national context in each setting. I think that the dramatic vote in France and the fact that Macron's party did so badly compared to the Rassemblement National was very much about a vote against the government of the day, a sort of a referendum on Macronism and his current leadership of France. But I think that, as I say, that comes down to domestic politics. When it comes to the Green story, indeed, the number of seats that the Green parties will have has gone down. And as others have said, I don't expect Green to be one of the headlines in the strategic agenda for the next Commission, and the European Green Deal to be sort of championed in the way it was under the last mandate of the Commission. But at the same time, I think that one of the big successes of the first phase of the European Green Deal has been for it to be presented as a whole of economy process, and something that is not just the Green Party's issue, but is now everybody's issue. It's quite notable that when Nicolas Schmitz did his sort of celebratory speech at the European Socialists Conference on Sunday night, the first thing he said in terms of the challenges for this next administration was taking the climate agenda and the European Green Deal forward. So I think the question now is sort of how the costs are shared and not whether we continue with climate action. It'll be under the framing of competitiveness and security, but the agenda will still be there.
So no, all hope is lost for the Greens, it seems. Thank you very much for your keen insights in this part of our discussion. Now let's shift gears a little bit and see the impact of last Sunday's vote on domestic politics in key countries of the European Union. On Sunday evening, the eyes of the European public quickly moved from Brussels to Paris as Emmanuel Macron dissolved the parliament and called a snap election. But France was not the only country to experience an earthquake in the aftermath of the vote. Belgium's Prime Minister, Alexander De Croo, resigned, while Germany's Green Party so talks about a potential leadership shakeup. In this next report, we will take a look at the state of governing coalitions across all the continent.
The French will head to the polls on June 30th and July 7th to elect their new parliament. Marine Le Pen's National Rally is currently polling at 33% and will likely win the ballot. Emmanuel Macron, meanwhile, is hoping to build a cordon sanitaire around the far right. So far, however, the response to his proposals has been lukewarm at best. In Spain, the right-wing People's Party tried to frame the European election as a referendum on the governing socialist coalition. Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez lost, but only narrowly, so the opposition can't call the vote a total victory. Brothers of Italy confirmed their domestic dominance, but not all its coalition partners were equally happy on Sunday. The League, led by Matteo Salvini, finished fifth, losing as many as 14 seats compared to the last term. Belgium's Alexander De Croo threw his country into political chaos by resigning after his party, the Open Flemish Liberals and Democrats, underperformed on Sunday, losing even to the Flemish nationalists. Experts say that it might take months to form another government. But no country is more significant for the political future of Europe than Germany. There, the incumbent three-party coalition was defeated not only by the center-right CDU, but also the far-right AfD. For Olaf Scholz, this is a clear sign of voters' dissatisfaction. The votes for right-wing populist parties here and in other European countries must worry us. We must never get used to this, and it must always be our mission to push them back and to ensure that there are clear majorities in favor of parties that have made a clear commitment to our democracy, to the rule of law, to what still defines us as a European Union, and that they also represent this. For other leaders, it's a signal that he might be too busy at home to lead internationally. Europe emerges from this year's vote divided and unstable, just when unity and stability is what it needs the most.
Ivan, what's your take on Emmanuel Macron's gamble to dissolve the parliament and call snap elections? Do you think he's going to succeed in his attempt to outsmart perhaps the far right? And also, do you think this will have significance beyond the French borders for the rest of Europe? How do you think?
Certainly, this is the most significant political moment in France and in Europe for a long time because of the importance of France in the European Union in the couple leadership with Germany. Very hard to say what the outcome will be. I listened to President Macron's speech this morning. He underlined the need for clarification. Given the vote, this is a very courageous and risky political move, as was said, and he is trying to position himself as the moderate center of the political spectrum, opposed to the extremes on the left and the right. Will this position and take succeed? As I said, and I think most pundits and editorials have said, very, very hard to say. The French political scene is in turmoil because of the suddenness and unexpectedness of this move, but it will certainly, whatever the outcome, will define the next steps in France and the European Union as such.
So a lot of nouns and a lot of unknowns. So now, Susi, your take on the other sick man of European politics, Germany. Here, Olaf Scholz avoids a snap election, but numbers don't lie. We see clearly that the winners, CDU, if they were to team up with AfD, they jointly have a higher support than the traffic light coalition put together. What's your take on the situation in Germany? And also, similar question, do you think this will impact European politics and wider Europe as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think, firstly, the idea of a CDU and an AfD coalition, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that Germany is perhaps the one country in the EU where the cordon sanitaire against working with their far-right group is remains very firm. So I think that nevertheless, Olaf Scholz does indeed feel enfeebled by this situation. And I think the challenge, as Ivan highlighted, is that France and Germany, although that relationship hasn't been sort of at its closest over the last few years, those two largest member states do remain the kind of the engine of driving the geopolitical Europe project forward. And if both of these leaders are now domestically focused over the next year, there's no snap election in Germany, but there are legislative elections coming up in 2025. So I think if both of these countries are now having to be domestically focused, the challenge is that from the outside, Europe is not going to be looking over the next period like an actor that means what it says when it says that it's going to be taking charge of its own security, it's going to become a more competitive player in a fierce international environment, it's going to stand up to the US, it's going to challenge China in these relationships. I think these things require a certain resolve, a certain unity among member states that imply a sort of a common purpose around building the European project up. And I think that, if anything, this European Parliament vote, although it is not a kind of a seismic shock in terms of what Europe can do, it will mean that compromises will have to be harder fought at every stage on the budget, on security, on enlargement, and all the big challenges ahead of Europeans.
Interesting times ahead for Germany. Michał, you seem to be playing the role of the provider of a bird's eye view in this discussion, so I'm going to use you for that again and ask you for a brief overview of what's actually happening on the continent. We have snap elections in France, we have the resignation of the Prime Minister in Belgium, we have underperforming results for the governing coalitions in Germany, but also in Spain. We have gains of the opposition in Poland. So I'm going to pose a rather poetic so to speak, question to you and ask, is stability in domestic European politics a thing of the past now?
It depends, because as we know, I mean, the stability in general is kind of not something given. Sometimes it's good, like in Hungary, we can see that for the first time since many years there is a political alternative to Viktor Orban, and it's a very important information. Also, in many of the countries that we discussed, it's true that the rise of the far right is worrying. This is true, but on the other hand, the mainstream parties are still much bigger, like in Germany, for example, than the far right or far left parties. So the picture is very complex, I'd say, and as I said before, I don't think it's for that is very grim for now. But obviously that there is this threat that in 5 years that there will be a far right majority in the European Parliament, and then everything or a lot could change. I wouldn't say that we'll see that change already now. There are some important questions for the future. If we speak of stability, of what can happen next, this will be probably also the situation on the right. So where the EPP will be, how far will it go when it comes to the alliances with the far right parties? So kind of the future of the center right and right. I think that's one of the most interesting questions. And the second interesting question is what will happen with the rest of the political European governing coalition, meaning Renew Europe and Socialists. I think that there will be much more cooperation right now, and if this, also in order to show that there are some positive moves, that there is some positive agenda, not only formulating an answer to the far right, but there are also pro-European centrist movements that want to work together, have ideas, and develop the European project further, not just answer to the far right.
A lot of questions, very few definitive answers, but cautious optimism from the panel tonight. Susi Denisson, Michał Matlak, Ivan Vejvoda, thank you very much. As we just heard, where you see Europe headed largely depends on your own point of view. In the short term, we're likely to witness a lot of political bargaining and uncertainty. But a broader perspective reveals certain anchors of stability, to quote again Ursula von der Leyen. Whether they're enough to let the EU navigate safely through these stormy waters, That very much depends on the negotiation skills of von der Leyen herself. Thank you for being with us tonight. Make sure to tune in next Thursday when we will try to tackle the generational debate in European politics. Good night.